The cry of my father, "Get out and don't come back until you've grown up," was the first and the last time I thought to sever all ties with the family. Interestingly, life decided to become a stand-up comedian for me. Fast forward 7 years, and the very people who swore they wouldn't come to me for help when the empire they built decided to fall apart came running to me. How I went from being the family's failure to the sole provider is a story I am yet to tell. And trust me, I made it increasingly difficult for them. Revolving around the centerpiece of Manhattan, I have always found myself at the heart of the congested glass roads, which look stunning, like something plucked straight out of a movie. Cars honking on the street, accompanied by tourists chatting with street performers, add a musical touch to the picturesque scenery. But beneath the expensive, vibing facade of the magnificent brownstone house that I lived in with my caught-up family was a pressure that they and I could never imagine. I am Rebecca Hayes, the oldest daughter of Richard and Margaret Hayes, who best represent the New York elite circle. My father was a real estate mogul and a well-known name in the ruthless corporate competition. He never cut anyone slack. My mother was an archetype of a stereotypical wife, eternally cheerful and fading into the background figure at home. They had cultivated a life full of envy, splendor, power, and a web of connections that could open any door. But beyond this well-crafted facade, I always had an inclination of feeling like an alien in a family I was born into. By my formative years, I had come to firmly believe that success was my ultimate aim in life. As I walked into our living room overflowing with my father's lavish trinkets and artwork that he had spent years collecting, I could hear his voice echoing in my mind. "You need to understand, Rebecca, success isn't just a choice. It's a requirement. You have to be better than everyone else. You have to make something out of yourself." Given the context, my father's words wound up motivating me personally, became yet another burden for me to carry throughout my life. Painting was my pastime that I pursued irrespective of the bounded expectations I constantly faced. At school, I was always among the top scorers, which put me far ahead of my peers, however excelled in art in parallel. Whenever I needed to take a breather, painting was my go-to choice. All along, my passion for art was met with disdain. When I'd arrive home with a new painting or sketch, the first thing my father did was dismiss it with a wave of his hand. "Art is a hobby, Rebecca. It won't pay the bills. You need to think about your future seriously. You should be focused on business or law and definitely not wasting your time on nonsense like that." His words cut me deeply, almost to the point of death. As I attempted to recover from his outburst, in the distance I could see my brother Daniel seeking their approval. He was the golden child, the lucky one who got to inherit the family business. Everything he did was prized, like ridiculously good grades and winning at sports. The bright smile that complemented the rest of his dazzling character made it all the more better. He was the ultimate winner. Meanwhile, I'd always felt as if I was just a shadow. Conflict came alive at home when I was around 12 years old. My father painstakingly perceived each step I took with a checklist measuring my remaining years, reverberating echoingly in his head. And any dialogue felt like some sort of a deal, every utterance carefully crafted for its reception. My mother, in her furious desire to prevent conflict, went even further than my father would by encouraging me to follow his more sensible suggestions. "Artists don't make a living, Rebecca," she would worry, appropriately wrapping her words in maternal tenderness. "You need to be reasonable." Time and again, it felt as if they were building a huge cage and caging my world with perplexing control elements I could not hope to comprehend and let alone live within. What they thought I should explore was everything I hated. My dreams lay in the stunning world just beyond these barriers. But these restrictions created by my family and society as a whole felt inexplicably intoxicating. I found a form of escape through the brushes I used for my art by painting throughout the night, and my crazy fantasies morphed into tangible paintings. Emotions filled with rage, tears flowed freely, yet acceptance remained incomplete. My breaking point came during my final year of high school. I completed a portfolio for my prospective colleges, meticulously crafting each piece in the hopes that my father would finally offer me his coveted validation. My expectations were dashed when I showcased my work to him, and all I was left with was an expression of disgust. "This is what you want to do with your life?" he asked, scoffing while shaking his head. "You're wasting your time, Rebecca. You need to focus on something that will actually pay the bills. Art is a dead end." Those words cut deep. I stood there immobilized by the inner turmoil stemming from anger coupled with heartbreak. "It's not a dead end for me. This is my passion," I retorted, letting my emotions govern the shaking in my voice to fill the space in between my breaths. "Passion doesn't pay the rent, Rebecca. You need to face reality," he fought back. My thoughts drifted in different directions as I vomited my feelings into my pillow the previous night. I have never before contemplated what surrendering to this fight would feel like as now. It seems that a never-ending set of expectations waits for you, and the family is just dragging you down. In that exact moment, I decided to do something, which in my opinion will alter the entire journey of my life. My heart raced, yet I was calm. Deep inside me, something screamed to engage and scream. "I'm done. This is exactly holy," I felt. And let Tokyo become free of the heavy shackles of expectation. And in a very dignified tone, let her aggressive outburst spill. "When I close this curtain, it's going to do in your face as Rebecca and Chips," bellowed the father. "I didn't take your petty surrender as a choice. Responsibilities and walking off are totally negligible." My eyes were red, tears rolling down like petals in the wind. Shaking my head slowly brought the world into focus, all in just a moment's glance. Have your expectations already drowned my existence? Unhypnotize your rudimentary beliefs till I am left grouchily gasping for 2 bubbles of discovery. With every step I took, even with the dread of this decision, the energy-fueled allergic shivers of Manhattan showering me gradually began to shine a new light. Yes, I am terrified but also nourished with boundless choice. Yes, there is the curse of leaving all comfort I knew, but the reign of choosing is powerful. At that point, I resolved to show them differently. I would achieve my own American dream at all costs. I would be an artist, and I would demonstrate to my family that the backbone of success is not riches or prestige, but rather devoted passion, mental fortitude, and an indomitable spirit fighting for oneself. I was unaware that this was only the prelude to a painstaking journey that would push me to my limits, shatter my perceptions, and ultimately culminate in an unforeseen reckoning. The first week after the self-imposed exile from the family home felt dizzying. I had sacrificed my childhood's penthouse suite for a one-bedroom in the unremarkable Brooklyn, which was nothing like the previously lived lavish brownstone. The walls of the new apartment were chipped, the floors creaked, and subway trains rattled my windows. There was a constant distant sound of subway trains rattling my windows 24/7. But when I laid my head to rest on the thin mattress that first night, I was filled with a peculiar blend of liberating elation and uncertainty. Facing the unsolicited truths of adulthood was a harsh learning curve. No longer was I living in a world which catered to my every whim and desire. I had to work to financially sustain myself, which involved a multitude of emotionally and physically exhausting jobs. Step 1 of my self-sufficiency goal was getting a job at a local diner, which required unending hours of coffee and pancake servitude to a seemingly indifferent clientele. The tips were not worth all the effort, but every dollar earned felt like the next step towards breaking away from the financial and emotional grasp I was living under. Evening was a rush of its own as I grabbed quick bites from around the apartment before diving into the world of art. While chaos surrounded the new realities of my life, it was in the paintings where I found solace. Flooding every crevice of my minuscule apartment with canvas covered what I could not express in raw terms. It was deep into the night where I would paint, documenting the memories of loss and strength through heart-wrenching strokes that I only so desperately wished could be felt. The reality of my situation began to set in as weeks transformed into months. I did not have an unlimited supply of savings, and my bills were accumulating. Rent was coming up, and even the mere thought of not being able to pay it gave me a panic attack. I had exchanged my family's safety net for freedom, but freedom came with its own burdens that I had to shoulder. After a particularly exhausting shift at the diner, I returned to my apartment only to see my letterbox overflowing. One of my letters was from my landlord, and to my complete shock, I was behind on rent. As I read the letter, my heart fell into my stomach and I felt completely hopeless. I had vowed I would be independent, but reality was proving to be more difficult than I originally anticipated. After a long day of work where I felt like I don't belong, I ever so frequently collapse onto my feeling utterly spent couch while staring blankly at the walls that felt like they were one step closer to crushing me. Along with all the work that felt never-ending, scrolling through my phone popping with myriad notifications is something I look to escape. But in this case, responding didn't feel meant for anyone at all. As silence engulfed me like a suffocative blanket forcing me to breathe my family's rejection, my mind was unsettled, which made me cross the delicate boundaries of sanity. Though I initially made the decision to pick behind my curtains of grief, the choices I intended to avoid were weeds that taunted me. As my internal turmoil raged, I made the rash decision to get in touch with someone I had previously been very good friends with, like Sarah. In truth, ever since I moved out, me and Sarah have never been on the best terms. But at this moment in time, sparking a conversation with someone that comprehended the rough patch I was going through brought me a false sense of everything being all right. A feeling that was soon soothed when Sarah picked up. Recall when Case 11 was published? Or when airline seat assignment systems chose which passengers would sit next to each other? These events required basic reasoning skills, yet these skills remained absent. "Hey, is this Rebecca? Where are you? I have missed you a ton." She responded, and straight off the bat, her voice brought back gentle nostalgia of more innocent times. "Are you still surfing?" She furthered, making me deep dive in a world which had way more colorful outcomes than I had thought. "Not as much as I'd like. I've been too busy trying to stay afloat," I confessed, expressing my letdown sentiments in my voice. "Rebecca, you need to make time for your art. It's what you love. Don't let this situation take that away from you." She pushed, sympathetic. For some reason, her words were important. I noticed that in trying to survive, I was neglecting the only thing that had brought me joy. That very night, I grabbed my brushes and painted till sunrise while offloading all my frustration and despair into my art. With each stroke, I could feel a bit of hope coming alive within me. The effort, however, did not ease my struggles. I picked up more side gigs such as cleaning houses, babysitting, and even dog walking. All of it was to help get my head above water. The constant transition between jobs was zapping my energy, but amidst all the chaos, I found solace in the fact that I did not give in to exhaustion. I was motivated to make my dreams come true, no matter the sacrifices needed. However, it was not only the financial burden that was difficult for me to deal with. I was incredibly lonely. I missed my family even though I knew they had dismissed me. The fragments of my former self, which I so desperately wanted to cling to, hurt everywhere I turned. So many times, contemplating getting in touch made me feel fury and betrayal. I envisioned a scenario of my future where I was deemed inconsequential and left to sort out my reality all by myself. Searching for reasons to stay motivated was a struggle for me personally. I still recall a day where I happened to walk into an open mic session. The said session was accompanied by an art gallery exhibit in my local area. It showcased works of renowned and emerging artists, and listeners were encouraged to indulge themselves in the immense talent around them. Knowing I could put myself up for assessment made my pulse race. Now, with the same thought came sensations of impossibly high amounts of pressure. Among others, what if I did not match up to expectations? What if I became reclusive because of the rejection? Realizing how preposterous and self-inflicted my constraints were gave me a sane perspective. I started dancing with my thoughts and ultimately crafted a plan. All I had to do was collect a few pieces that I thought best represented not only me but my skills too, and I'd be good to go. Placing myself on stage was what I dreaded the most. But post-mock presentation, there's no denying my confidence to adapt was through the roof. As my turn arrived, I advanced with my paintings carefully pressed against my chest. I took 2 seconds to concentrate and commence with my speech. I am Rebecca, ready to share my story of chasing a dream, the pain and battles I have fought, as well as the resilience art brings into my life employment opportunities in the UK. Sharing my story was alive for the audience with gentle nods of agreement here and there. Each word came from a place deep within, where emotions resided, where pain, sorrow, and hope exists. The emotions attached to each piece had to be felt in order for full appreciation. Upon my completion, I was rewarded with a thunderous applause. At that point, after so long, I could say that I was feeling somewhat appreciated. The night marked the most significant change for me and best night of my life. Even when I got to experience my lowest low, at least I still had art. The fight towards getting my life in order was far from over, but at least I am able to connect with people that share similar journeys and has also revived me. Leaving the gallery that night, I felt a redefined sense of direction. While I might have been barely holding on, I was starting to thrive in ways I had never expected. There was an undeniable challenge that awaited me, but I was prepared to meet it head on. I was set to transform my suffering into art and my identity one brushstroke at a time. Weeks turned into months, and I became trapped in what felt like an unending cycle of work and creativity. Painting turned into a consuming passion, leading me to wait tables, clean apartments, and attend art events during the day. While I struggled to keep my head above water, reality roamed free, chasing a spark of hope that whispered gently in my ear, claiming to grow more radiant with each single day. While pulling a late-night painting session, I came up with a perspective that I believed would turn everything upside down for me. Weathering the storm, I named it, and it also served as a metaphor for the journey ridden with chaos. With vivid colors serving as my canvas and deep emotions as my painting tools, I allowed every brushstroke to capture my emotions. The next week, I resolved to enter a piece of work into an art competition in my locality. I had absolutely nothing to lose. My life to this point had been volatile, and I felt like this was the next step towards reestablishing my identity as an artist. On the day of the competition, I nervously waited for my turn in the midst of other artists who were showcasing their interpretations of life. The overwhelming buzz of excitement and creativity left me with a churning feeling in my stomach. I measured the mood of the judges while they were going around observing the pieces. From my perspective, they were always engaged in my piece, and I definitely noticed some interest in their gaze, which made me feel good for a moment, even if temporarily. After they finally declared the winners, my heart was racing when I heard third place, then second. And finally, the grand prize was awarded to none other than Weathering the Storm. Applause filled the air, and while people were coming for the showers of accolades, I felt as if I was in some sort of dazed dream. The validation I sought out for a prolonged period of time now felt real. It dawned on me that I had done it. I was no longer just a struggling artist out there, but rather a known name in the local art scene, just waiting to be discovered. In the following days, the buzz of competition sent me into a sprint across new opportunities. My phone was being flooded with messages from art collectors, local media outlets, and even galleries wanting to feature my work. I was finally garnering attention for my talent, and it felt surreal. While sorting through my emails one day, there was one from Eleanor Grant that sent my heart racing. She was well known as an art collector and had a knack for showcasing up and coming artists. Her email read, "Eam through your work presented at the past competition. You are quite talented, I must say. Would you be open to discussing the potential for a collaborative project? Let me know when we can meet." I was frozen staring at my screen as this rare opportunity started to feel out of reach. This was exactly the moment which I had long waited for, to have a shot at capturing the attention of someone ready to promote and believe in my art. I came to my senses and immediately responded, suggesting a trendy cafe located in the city where we could discuss further. My heart raced as I prepared for the meeting, knowing it was the first out of many. Eleanor had arrived before me at the cafe. Her presence was powerful yet comfortable. She looked to be in her 50s with defined facial structures and was exuding confidence that calmed me. After a brief chat, I could tell that she was interested in my work as I walked her through my presentation based on her facial expressions. "Your pieces are compelling and beautifully raw." She was leaning forward. "I see so much potential in you, Rebecca. I would gladly help jumpstart your career and ensure your work ends up in galleries." I made to Rebecca, brought in a novel wave of exhilaration accompanied by the creative discussions I was having with Eleanor. For the first time in my life, I could see a reality where I was far more advanced than just supporting myself. Eleanor proposed organizing exhibition showcasing not only my art, but also at how far I have come in my artistic journey and the changes of my style over time. I did, however, spend all of my energy and time in the preceding weeks from the exhibition date. No only did I need to polish existing pieces, but I also needed to create new work that would highlight my personal struggles. The tension was great, but this was an opportunity I had to organize. With mixed feelings of excitement and anxiety, I anticipated the exhibition date. Am I going to capture people's attention? Will I achieve all of my dreams? It seemed like I was almost there, but only if they noticed the emotion behind every piece. The gallery's energy was buzzing the night of the exhibition, and while guests slowly filtered in, I nervously stood by the entrance observing how people mingling and admiring the art hung on the walls. When Eleanor gave me the floor to address the audience, I was overcome with the feeling of them staring at me. Allow me the utmost delight to present before you all Rebecca Hayes, a true marvel of the contemporary art world, she stated proudly. In that moment, I knew the weight of the moment. The first few words were difficult with the pounding sensation in my chest, but after inhaling deeply, my story poured out. Who I am, why I made the choices that I did, my struggles, challenges, and the goals I set. Everything that made me passionate about art. The understanding and empathy observable in their gaze as I narrate my work was nothing short of remarkable, while the entire audience was all ears, which made the experience even more powerful. As I moved around the room, accepting praises and mingling with the guests I had just given a speech to, I noticed my heart fill with joy. People were starting to purchase my creations, and their validation for my work was unlike anything I had ever experienced. By the middle of the night, several collectors interested in investing my work approached me. I had sold almost half of the pieces that I had set up on display. Amidst all the excitement, though, I noticed a face that I was profoundly familiar with. My brother Daniel. He looked to be in a shocked state and stood to the side watching me. His gaze overwhelmed me with a wave of emotions, especially considering I had not seen him since I left home. Rebecca, he murmured, approaching me slowly, jaw set. What are you doing here? I did not expect you to be doing this well. Hearing such praise after so long, a feeling of pride washed over me, but it was soon pouring with resentment. Some people can make it without the family name, I hissed back, my words sharper than what I intended. Daniel's expression looked awfully shocked, as if my words had landed terribly. I came to support you, came his voice, which was painfully sincere. Dad's been so worried about you. Worried or regretful? Without any form of context to discipline the retribution, words departed my mouth. You all kicked me out, Daniel. You had your chance. Now it's my turn. His lips parted in the prelude of a rebuttal, and I cut him off. Unsurprisingly annoyed, I faced the other side, not wishing to have his drain be the sucker on my brightness. I had fought far too hard to let anyone who appears from my past pull me back. By the end of the night, I felt an overwhelming wave of warm satisfaction wash over me. The road was anything but smooth, and I still had a long way to go, yet I was finally beginning to feel like a star. If everything goes according to plans, I'll find a way to live the life I desire, and this time, I resolved to make these plans work on my own terms. That night marked a turning point in my life, the reinforcing moment that opened my eyes to newfound resolve. I had finally carved myself out a role in the monstrous world of arts while reclaiming my fragmented identity. As I relished in the afterglow of that success, remnants of doubt danced inches away from the stage where I portrayed my past persona striving to break free. My life transformed into a more colorful and fulfilling experience as days blended into weeks and months after the exhibition. There was some level of recognition coming my way, and I was finally getting to see my work showcased in galleries. But to my utter disbelief, the family I had cut off had been in turmoil for some undiscovered time. On one of the rainy afternoons while preparing Galley A for another exhibition, I was greeted with a phone call from Liam. He was a long-lost acquaintance who worked with my family. I could tell right off the bat that he didn't call to catch up. Rebecca, I don't wish to alarm you, but have you heard of the condition of your family business? Your father's firm, Hayes and Associates, is in deep trouble. They've lost several major clients, and the financial situation is dire. Rumor has it they might have to declare bankruptcy if things don't change soon. I remained frozen at the canvas in front of me with my paintbrush halted midair. My heartbeat revved as I retreated into his words. Sympathies partially, but manipulatively, in equal measure, morbidly reveling. They chose to overlook my being and gravitas when I desperately needed them, only to now be met with the dire repercussions of their worst assumptions. What do you mean they are in trouble? I inquired, feeling a little bit shaky. How did it get this far? Your father has been making some ventures that are a bit too dangerous, and he has been decidedly refusing to get help, Liam explained. Daniel is attempting to take control, but lacks the necessary skills and contacts. It's a disaster, Rebecca. I could feel the shutters of my world crashing down within me as I hung the phone. The very foundation of our family's empire seemed to be crumbling, and even with the anger that was boiling just beneath the surface, I felt a pang of worry. But I guess they were my family, regardless of how our relationship had unraveled over the years. In the following days, news that circulated became even more prominent. I started noticing conversations at art exhibitions, whispers about the fall of the Hayes dynasty. Once a large striding firm that captured the Manhattan skyline, the company was filing for bankruptcy. I noticed my father's name had made the news, only this time not for his accomplishments, but instead my father's shortcomings. Pouring my creativity into my artwork led to me spending days in my studio due to the tug of warring emotions I felt. Even when trying to build a personal identity for myself, the connection I felt with my family had a strong gravitational pull. It was impossible to turn a blind eye to the fact that they were suffering, and I was painful pondering how that was going to somehow coalesce with my reality. Then one day, while my studio was bustling with paintbrushes and half-finished canvases, my phone buzzed with a singular message. To my surprise, it was from my mother. Rebecca, you there? We need your intervention right now. Thinking of coming face-to-face with them was both exciting and terrifying. After every heated argument we had, they genuinely thought I would come forward and offer aid. I took a moment to let the sociopathic fury rumble in my chest subdue, only for it to be replaced with eager inquisitiveness. That night, I told them I would see them the next day. The students claimed their sister was satisfied with her French lessons, but somehow, her boredom in other classes culminated. The formerly ostentatiously adorned with over-the-top expensive art decorous foyer version of our house became subdued. It was lifeless. My parents sat tired and defeated gracefully at the other half of the room. I appreciate you coming, Rebecca, he said, sounding unlike himself, more mellow and fragile than usual. He appeared to be of an older age and much more frazzled than usual considering the context of the situation. That was never my intention, so don't flatter yourself, I snapped back, featuring a harsh tone. The choices made do set the repercussions for the future, this one being no different. Why owe you help when you have wronged me first? Margaret, in a shaky voice, attempted to reason. Because for the first and last time of my professional life, I feel the need to point out the harsh truth that stares any reasonable person in the face. We're family, and it is a firm fact that we are beyond desperate. Your father accepts it and quits being stubborn. All of you band together to help save the business. I am assuming you are the one who booted me out, saying I amount to nothing, and forced me to later change my name to embark on this new life to feel liberated. Is that true? That line of reasoning pushed me past the point of boiling anger not covered by ice, and I lost it. So in this supposed crisis, you expect me just to bail you all out without batting an eyelash? Richard shamed himself even more, averting his glazed-over gaze towards the floor. A mixture of ashamed and inspirited emotions washed over his features. I reality check we made some decisions. Brash to say the least. Oh, I won't deny, I definitely underestimated you. The truth is now painfully clear. A part of me relished their survival instincts because there was no greater joy than the executor turning into the beggar. But simultaneously, some deeper feminine part emotionally quivered for the family still battered by contradiction. Why would I give it any thought at all? I replied, folding my arms stubbornly. You had your opportunity to support me and you discarded me as if I were worthless. We were incorrect, my mother said, her voice cracking. I was incorrect. But we need to change, and we require you if we are to change. While they painted the picture with the details of their financial woes, a feeling of both vindication and sorrow washed over me. I was faced with a decision that could alter the course of the rest of my life. They had always looked so infallible, but now they were so vulnerable. And this was the choice of whether I will help them rise from the cobber or let them suffer the consequences of their decisions. In that instant, it struck me that even though the family empire was deteriorating, it also provided me an opportunity to reclaim the space I had always been given. While I stood in the position to reframe our history, I was aware of the burden that needed to be paid. The answer I needed lies in determining the cost, figuring out just how much could I assist them without losing my sanity while navigating the intricacies of our history. The message from my mother truly was echoing in my mind, and began to feel like unshakable ghostly tune. May we have a chat with you, Rebecca? We are in need of your assistance. This was the scene I played in my mind over and over again. My family, who used to look down upon me, now eating their words and begging me to help them. I'd imagined feeling triumphant and gleefully vindicated. Instead, all I felt was a strange, hollow unease. When I finally agreed to meet them, I didn't know if I was walking into a negotiation table or walking into a battlefield. I wasn't sure what I wanted more, to lend a hand to them or sit back and watch them shatter under the weight of their arrogance. One thing I knew for certain was that I was the one in control for the very first time in my life. Tension was palpable as I stepped through the door. A heavy coat of temper soothed the family brownstone, and the once imperious structure was nothing more than a shadow of its former self. The next day, I decided to pay the dull paradox of the contended family a visit. The echoing silence revealed it all. The expensive furniture, for some reason, appeared to be out of place, devoid of life. It was like the house was struggling to breathe due to the demise of its tenants. And the grand chandelier, seemingly the last piece of joy, struggled to glitter like it used to. Mom was already waiting at the entrance for me. Her gaze was tired and her complexion had lost its color. It seemed to me that she had not rested in weeks. "Rebecca," she said, almost like whispering, shaking ever so slightly. "Thanks for coming." I nodded my head slightly, which did not constitute a smile or hug. "Let's get this over with." After this, she moved into the living room where my father was already waiting. He was seating in a leather armchair, looking older than he used to, and appeared tense. His hands were clasped together, which made his stress and exhaustion obvious. And so did my little brother. Daniel chose to stand by the fireplace with his arms crossed and jaw locked, in a much more defensive posture than what I had grown used to seeing him in. I lowered myself onto the couch directly across from them, crossing my legs and resting my bound hands in my lap. "What do you want from me?" I managed to utter, calm yet cold. "Why do you need me here, when it was clear years ago I wasn't fit for this family?" My father scowled, clearing his throat in defense. "Ugh, Rebecca," he began, sounding as though his pride was at stake. We, hit a rough patch. It was compounded because we are losing clients slower than we anticipated. Investors are pulling out, and if we aren't careful, we will be bankrupt." "Seriously?" Never would have believed my own ears. I droned in monotone as his words resonated within me, but kept my acting face on. "Is there any reason why you think I would be able to change anything? Like, impromptu. I'm an artist, remember? Your vision, your idea, we need it. We lack ideas. Fresh ideas is what will revamp and save the failing business," was all my mother said as she leaned in, clasping her hands together as if in prayer. "We were wrong, Rebecca. Not supporting you then. The only possibility of selling even a single idea. But, now we need your help." I fed off the weak hope in her trembling tone, subtly aimed at casting my mother in a positive light. Your creativity is the only thing that can save us. Of course, I replied with bare cynicism I thought radiated through my tone. Because the last thing on my mind was how encouraging and supportive you all are for what, in your eyes, would make me the biggest embarrassment of a disgraced daughter I'm perceived to be. A waste of potential. Rebecca, that's not fair, came Daniel's defensive voice. We were trying to protect you. Dad wanted you to have a stable career. I began, and narrowed my eyes at him. Protect me? Stable career? Don't attempt concern for me, Daniel. You all sought to fit me into your perfect little box, and when I didn't, you cast me out. So do not for a second act as if it was for my benefit. My monologue deployed silence as if it were an explosive. In that moment, all my family was still stunned. Their expressions contorted as the realization began setting in. My father's shoulders slumping is something I had never witnessed before. You're right, he mumbled in a cracked voice, lower than a whisper. I was wrong. I let my pride get in the way. Now I'm paying the price for it. I will admit his trembling figure startled me just a little. The man who had once been the definition of control was now not. Blinking, I realized all my childhood fantasies were being ripped apart, bound up with choice that had, as I had once thought, became the perfect family, was shattered. But I'm not sure if I find it overwhelmingly rough or confusingly hollow. Why had I spent so long wanting hearing someone admit my father's errors? As I leaned against the couch, I asked, What's the plan? You assume that I'm going to jump in and rescue everything? From what we understand, you've built a name for yourself. You have a perspective that we desperately need. Please, Rebecca, we no longer have any choices, stated their father, exuding a mixture of sorrow and hope. My situation was that of coming face to face with the industry that has marginalized me while trying to breathe life to my neglected concept. I wanted to tell them in the most sarcastic way possible how it would be funny if I were to imagine letting them enjoy this ridiculous fantasy without any consequences. In a manner that was just a tad more pragmatic, I was seeing an opportunity. I decided to be helpful, causing my mother to let out a sigh of relief. But on my terms, I added. A flare of pride from my father resurfaced with a frown on his face. What terms? I take control, I stated with resolve. It is my way of saving this company. No second guessing or interference. You step aside and let me run things. Dan scoffed while shaking his head in disbelief. You can't be serious. You don't have the experience. Interrupting him, I retorted, I have more experience than you think. And frankly, you're in no position to argue. This company is sinking, and I'm your last lifeline. Take it or leave it. Tightening his jaw was my father's response, but a nod followed his prolonged silence. Fine, he replied, heavy with a reluctant tone. We'll do it your way. While I kept my expression unchanging, a surge of internal victory coursed through me. I responded. Good, then let's get to work. Emotions mixed for me when exiting the brownstone. For the first time, I held the power. The prospect of anger and vindication, alongside a strange sense of responsibility, was making for one powerful feeling. The power to rebuild a business also required a masterful reconstruction of every personal and familial relationship that I had ever had. A journey this complicated was sure to be filled with uncharted challenges around every corner, and that is something I was completely unprepared for. In the aftermath of the meeting with my family, I felt a multitude of emotions flooding my being. The agreement that was made was to assist my family, but the family trust was not with boundaries. It was my way, or the highway. My walk in Manhattan brought me some sense of relief, but at the same time, a tinge of panic. This feeling was accompanied by the enormity of my decision and how it could alter the trajectory of my future. But one thing was certain. Regardless of my decision, I was not going to let my past dictate my tomorrow. I called an emergency meeting the very next day with my parents and my former colleagues at Hayes and Associates. The air was thick with tension. Hope fought against anxiety as my mother and Daniel sat expectantly across from me. I felt that I was being observed and that every clue to unlock the daughter who had tormented her family would be pounced upon. "Thank you all for joining the meeting," I said calmly as I managed to steady my voice. "My first point is that, as you know, there is a crisis in our company. If we want to continue existing, there are immediate actions we must take to resolve this issue." He simply nodded, a deep crease forming on his forehead. "What do you suggest we do?" "For example," I said while sitting straight and leaning my shoulders ahead, "we have to change our client demographics as well as our marketing approach. As much as I hate to admit, the world around us has undergone drastic changes, but we're yet to accept it. We cannot depend on legacy clients and old contracts. We need fresh ideas, new projects that jive with contemporary markets." Daniel rolled his eyes, his fresh arms crossed in defiance. "And you think you have all the answers? This isn't your world. You are just an artist, Rebecca." His words made my blood boil, but I forced myself to remain calm. "I appreciate it. This world isn't mine, but there is a possibility that it would be, if allowed. Crossovers between the real estate and art world have become increasingly common. People need distinctive structures that articulate the values they live by. We need to adapt, not stagnate." "Fine, but how do we even start? You can't just wave a magic wand and fix everything?" My father posed his question, surely scared of the answers that would follow. His eyes had softened just a little, so that was a win. "Actually, I can," I told him. A small glint of a grin creased my lips as I replied, "I have contacts within the art community that could assist us. For example, we could hold events that feature local artists in our venues, appeal to younger customers, and create a lot of excitement. I will also improve our image online. Advertising through social media is the easiest option." "And how do you think we pay for these changes?" Daniel interrupted with noticeable skepticism in his voice. "We do not have excess capital to burn on wild concepts." I relaxed in the chair and folded my arms. "For example, we could focus on one project at a time, which would be far more efficient in terms of resource allocation. I will guide us through this, and so help me. You will see that this is worth the investment." A hush fell over the room, and I could feel the tension amping up. My father turned to my mother, who gave a very slight nod, almost as if signaling for him to let go of his stubborn pride. With a deep sigh, he finally gave in. "All right, Rebecca, we will try it your way, but I get a say in how we make the decisions." "Of course," I replied, struggling to keep a formal tone. "But I need you to trust my judgment. If we're going to make this work, then we need to be able to operate as a cohesive unit." Even as the meeting carried on, I felt as if cautiously put optimism off to the side during bold quotes. With every word I uttered, it was becoming clearer that my family's defenses were crumbling. They are beginning to understand my value, and that is not merely as their daughter, but as a capable businesswoman. As I sat in my minuscule apartment of the family's skyscraper that night, I could feel the thrill from the day's success fading. I thought over how to capitalize on most of the available opportunities to strategize appropriate business marketing. Although I had a foothold, there is no avoiding the family politics suppressing my resentment. Betrayal felt set up while I pondered about my parents who had without reason discarded me earlier on, then, in a rush, sought support in what seemed like a controlled chaos. Optimism feeling futile after a grappling technical as well as social venture to uplift the reputation of the company now felt overwhelmingly hopeless. Contacting local artists in attempts to collaborate with us through beautifying the properties sculpted the base sugarcoating of my company's social media with the fast-paced art and culture the place offered. Adapting to the new vision of our company, I could feel the societal changes began to settle in the core infrastructure. The only thing haunting were the jitters causing discontentment among my family, created capitalist peers, and the younger siblings they failed to support, which was tangible with the steps I took. There are many that struggled with the acceptance of my elevated position of authority, which suffocated me. During one of the marketing proposal reviews, he charged forward with a thunderous look dominating his stoic face. Do you seriously believe that you can just waltz in here and take over? He yelled, the sound bouncing around the cramped room. You're not even a real businesswoman. You are simply riding the coattails of your little art career. My heart kicked into overdrive as I rose to my feet. You don't have the right to dictate my worth, Daniel. It's painfully obvious you struggle to come to terms with your own inadequacies, but I have worked hard to get here, and I refuse to be dictated by your insecurities. You had your chance, and now it's my turn. You're a joke, he spat back, rage etched on his face. You actually believe you can fix everything? You are just an artist posing in a suit. You have never set foot in the trenches like we have. I took another step forward, feeling the weight of his disdain. And do you really think I am going to let you pull me down again? This ceases to be about you or Dad, and now revolves around what is best for the company, and if you can't accept that, then you might need to reconsider your position here. For a brief moment, I thought Daniel was about to explode, but I was surprised when he merely gave me a stony glare and stepped back, shoulders slumped. You won't last long, he said angrily, leaving my office, slamming the door. I experienced an unusual blend of feelings, both victorious and alarming, as I recalled the closing of the door. The confrontation I encountered had some impact on my standing, but while I seemed to hold the ground and emerge victorious, I took within me a tacit understanding that this battle only increased the weathered brink. Everything seemed to be quieted, but a relentless rush of tension carved its way through every battle waiting to evolve between us. With my focus on reinvigorating the firm, I suddenly remembered all the tasks I had to achieve to build my credible profile. I felt strangely satisfied knowing that this wasn't simply some run-of-the-mill business project. It was purely personal, a means to seek some sort of justice for all I had to go through throughout my life. The daughter who was once representing the discarded family has now transformed into someone who'll fight every bone in the body waiting for reclaim and stand her ground. My image while attempting to block the blows was glaring also. The range was noticeably terrorized, so I paid equal attention to restoring Hayes and Associates. It was essential to convey artistic elements to the business-based, overly fused center mind. Change was dynamic and unstoppable. The same applied for me. My intuition told that I would be charging unusual pace towards the frontline cubed zone, free to experience new adaptation. My plan began by carefully crafting a sequence of community art initiatives, which included working with local artists that would allow us to view unique properties in a different light. I imagined art installations nestled within our listings, as every wall was a story waiting to be told. It required a lot of effort, but proving myself would take a bold decision, and some calculated risks in the process. I contacted a number of local artists to invite them to partner with us on our upcoming plans. I was overwhelmed with the response. I was in good stead as artists were eager to showcase their work. So with little effort, I managed to bring together a bunch of competent people who shared my vision. Eventually, we put our heads together in brainstorming sessions for our first event that resulted into a gallery opening at one of our flagship properties situated right in the middle of Brooklyn. With the planning moving along nicely, I started feeling a renewed drive. The gallery opening would serve a dual purpose of not only selling the property, but marketing it as an artist platform to gain exposure. I made sure each detail felt personal to my vision, which of course resulted in a mixture of real estate and art. Nevertheless, the conflict with Daniel continued to be a sore spot. He continues to doubt my attempts and ridicules my concepts to the staff. As I was completing the guest list for the gallery opening the other day, he marched into my office with his arms folded. Do you honestly believe this will be effective? He chuckled with some scorn. You're only attempting to polish yourself. This is not an art exhibition, it is a corporation. I glanced towards him without flinching. This is fundamentally the solution to all the problems of the enterprise, Daniel. Properties are not merely being sold, lifestyles are being marketed. If this is beyond your grasp, perhaps it is time to think about your position. Though his face grew sterner, he did not manage to retort for a moment. I have had enough of your pessimistic attitude. It is going to happen, and it is going to work. The opening of the gallery was a whole new experience for me. From the new property, I was shocked at the changes I had implemented. The building was now colorful thanks to exterior murals and was fully furnished with colorful local artwork as well. The vibe in the vicinity was like nothing I had ever witnessed. People eagerly rushed to see it, and I can proudly say it has been a phenomenal success. I started to smile at the patrons as I felt my heartbeat quicken while observing them socialize in the setting and appreciate the artwork. The glimmer of interest and curiosity was vividly apparent as they scanned the exhibition. It was a manifestation of my vision, and I felt an immense sense of pride while soaking it all in. Later, I noticed a somewhat nostalgic face in the audience, Eleanor Grant. She came to meet me with an animated smile and a glass of wine. "Rebecca, this is mind-blowing. You've certainly impressed me. The vibe is exquisite." "Thank you," I said while feeling really grateful. "It's been hard work." Eleanor scanned her surroundings while soaking in the colorful environment. "It is one of those things that I knew was possible. This is the start of it all, Rebecca. Your future is glowing." Her words motivated me and gave me the feeling of actually setting pathways for my own legacy. The gallery opening was a blast, and a few of my pieces were sold. The reviews were pouring in word after word in praise. The buzz that we were trying to approach real estate with a different perspective began spreading, bringing in new clients who were willing to join this new vision. We landed some new contracts in the online marketplace and integrated many of my ideas onto properties we owned. I hired new employees, and the firm grew in ways I had previously thought impossible. In the business world, I was no longer just a daughter trying to prove herself, but a respected figure in both the art and real estate communities. I was an esteemed leader and visionary. With success came many additional issues to tackle head-on. It was no secret that Daniel was resentful of me. It was abundantly obvious and hurtful to some degree. He constantly fought against every single move I tried to make and tried his utmost to make me fail. There was palpable tension in the office between us, and even contemplating it exhausted me because I had, in essence, overcome the battle with my parents already. This lingering hostility was strife that had to be dealt with quickly. At one moment, I called a session with Daniel. The two of us were waiting for the other to make a statement which never came, hence the silence in the room when I decided to give a command. "We need to talk." He folded his arms, clearly telling me that he was prepared to defend himself. "What's there to talk about?" "You've taken everything from me. I haven't taken anything from you." "I haven't taken anything from you." I clawed back, carefully choosing my words to match my emotions. "This isn't only about you or me as individuals. This is about the collective future of the company. If our aims is really to succeed, then we must work in unity." He laughed incredulously and shook his head. "Do you think you can stroll in and just change everything because you think otherwise? You're not a real Hayes." "Perhaps," I shot back, raising my voice a notch. "But it's me who is bringing this company back into relevance. That needs to be acknowledged." With Daniel, there was a shift in expression alongside the telltale signs of that conflict, and for once, I spotted a glimpse of what seemed like vulnerability. "You make me feel scared, Rebecca. My initial thoughts were that I would take over the family business, but now, everything is slowly slipping away from me." I eased, now understanding the intrepidness cloaked in bravado. "No one here is losing everything. If you can swallow your pride and fight me with me, there is the potential to create something entirely new." He took his time considering, but after a while of palpable silence, he released a nod. "Okay, I suppose. Though it should be made clear, I am not surrendering the fact that I am part of this family. I'm not going to stand by while you take everything for yourself. I don't think you could pull that off," I replied, carefully suppressing a chuckle. "But we have to find a way to help one another. Together is definitely stronger." And that is how we fought our way to a fragile agreement. I wouldn't say that everything between us was perfect from that day on. However, for the first time, the sense of hope beginning to grow within me as the gas breather maybe avoided ceasing interaction. We fought the battle with the skeletons together. It, for once, was a realization of moving not only forward but towards a new beginning. While the company continued its upward trajectory, it struck me that I was not only creating a personal legacy, but was equally untangling the web of familial relationships. No longer was I simply Rebecca Hayes, the estranged daughter. At this moment, I was Although I still had a long path ahead of me, I know with certainty that I am capable of persisting through anything that life throws at me. What I am determined to do is preserve my legacy while aligning it with artistic passion and what it means to redefine being a Hayes. Founded in 1992, Hayes and Associates had a rough year or two until it was placed under my leadership. By the time I'd started leading this venture, we had already spent resources on branding and image, which had no effect due to our poor performance. Hayes and Associates transformed under my leadership a creative and innovation firm, which was a real estate agency, and was now attracting real premium clients. All the gallery openings and community art projects, coupled with collaborations with local artists, had transformed the firm, and thanks to which Hayes was once again able to experience the benefits of success after years of failure. However, there was tension in the air, especially with Daniel. I went on with my day-to-day work while looking over to see him successfully running the business, so I assumed there was peace. Even if there was acceptance, it was depleted. I sense that the peace is only on surface as the ever-growing Gordon and his entire family is standing remotely over me in the process, throwing me off guard. The unfulfilled agreement we had signed and sealed felt brittle, and sooner than later, the divide that was created would explode. While engrossed in my calendar last week, I was strangely contacted by Eleanor Grant. The tone in the call was intimidating. "Rebecca, we need to have a serious talk now." There was something uneasy that formed in my gut. Is something wrong? "We will meet in person," she said, "and I will clarify all in good scope." So we set a date at a cafe in Manhattan, and I was to be the first to get there. She had told me the problem in detail, which I thought was overreacting. Eleanor welcomed me with her contagious smile, although her worried expression told a different tale. As we found a quiet booth, she got straight down to business and the formalities. "It concerns your family," she voiced in a whisper. "I have quite concerning information about Hayes and Associates. There are speculations that your father intends to sell the firm." My heart sank. "What do you mean? Why would he do that?" Eleanor shifted her gaze toward me. "He thinks that selling is the only available option to save the remains of the company. I believe he is trying to escape and is afraid of losing control." "After everything we have built?" I blurted, gradually overwhelmed with emotion. "He can't simply throw in the towel." "I wish I were wrong," was all she said. "You must go speak to him. You are the one person who can alter this, Rebecca." As I walked out of the cafe, a flood of reactions fought with each other inside me. Deciding to sell the business would mark the demise of everything I'd worked so hard to build. It felt like a betrayal that could potentially undo all the progress we had made. There was no doubt now that I needed to confront him. Then I called a family meeting for the evening, where my parents and Daniel joined in the same place as my previous discussion over my return. The room felt thick with tension as I walked back and forth in front of them, everything feeling much worse as my imagination worked overtime in thinking what could await me. "Is it true?" I claimed with no softening, glaring at my father's face. "Are you really going to sell the company?" Richard's expression hardened. "It's not that simple, Rebecca. The market is volatile. I will say selling is probably the best path for all parties implicated." "Best for whom?" I shot back, my voice rising. "So, you're just going to toss all of our efforts away? It's time you decided whether you're going to give up on your family's legacy that's set in stone." James, feeling the blow from Rebecca, froze incompletely along with his spouse and remained motionless, spotting the divide forming as a storm above. "James, is this true?" She spoke gently. "Perhaps it is time we accept the defeat and cut our losses," he said with a tone that suggested having given up. "I really did think I could seize control over this, but it seems impossible now." The anger was apparent and readily available to me, but I could also feel tension that lay underneath my father's facade. "This is all panic-induced surrendering," I remarked, "but we have accomplished so much together. It would be a senseless retreat." Everyone in the boardroom had been waiting for someone's cue to pipe up. It was Daniel who finally decided to step up to the plate. "And what exactly do you suggest we do, Rebecca?" It is us who is deeply troubled. I maintained my composure and replied, I suggest we defend and fight for this company. There is no way all options should be exhausted. Richard, he began, shaking his head. It is clear his pride restrained him from becoming desperate. You really do not understand the dire situation. There are no shortage of risks. Isn't it hard for you to comprehend how much I actually know? I headed off. And after all this working around the place, proving myself, I get walked all over? No, this vision of ours can be restored. But to make it happen, I need full cooperation. Every one of them in the room could almost taste the silence that followed. I could see the conflict within my father, the internal struggle of a man who loved too much and was scared. He nodded slowly as if it took him an eternity to reach this conclusion. In that case, Rebecca, I will give you a chance. But I have to warn you, if this goes south, understand that this family comes first, and I will do anything to protect it. For a brief moment, my expectations were neutral after such a rush, but I still felt overwhelmed with relief. Reality was different. Every step of the journey was crawling with obstacles, but I was determined to overcome everything. As the meeting ended, I caught a glimpse of Daniel, and through Daniel's stoic expression, it looked like he was having an internal battle. Vulnerability was dipped in his voice when he uttered the words, granules of hope escaping. I trust you know what you are doing, he whispered. Indeed, I confirmed, allowing a smile to hope all was not lost. And I trust you will equally join me as we try to repair this legacy. The obstacles and tough calls that awaited were vast, but for the first time in a long while, I felt a resolve. A resolve to change not only my family's business, but even our dynamics. To give out and reconstruct a narrative, I knew forgiveness was not a simple task, but one that needed to be undertaken, if only to liberate my mind. It was a blend of hope and nervousness that engulfed me when I stepped out of my family's house that evening. There was still a long road to achieving redemption, and the willingness to reach the end required tenacity. Although defeat, resentment, and the feeling of betrayal was something I experienced, underlying the torment was strength, determination, and the will to forgive. Although the ultimate twist to my story has yet to be revealed, I am ready to welcome it, ready to build a new legacy that will both revere my past while creating opportunities for a better tomorrow. Well, that's how I went from the family's black sheep to the one who salvaged and improved everything they built. Life works in mysterious ways, doesn't it? If you liked my story, feel free to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing narratives of victory, drama, and unexpected turns. Until next time.